Hello, I'm Dave Feinlieb, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. You can find out more about how we're helping leading brands and retailers build retail media and product detail page content faster than ever before at itsrapid.ai. My guest on today's show is Jeff Cohen, Amazon Ads tech evangelist. At Amazon, Jeff works on a team that services thousands of partners who are building best-in-class technology and services on top of the advertising APIs. Prior to Amazon, Jeff was vice president of marketing at Seller Labs, general manager of campusbooks.com, and general manager of textbooks.com. He started his career at EFC International, a leading OEM distributor. Please enjoy my conversation with Jeff Cohen. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Tell us how you got your start. Take us back. How'd you get things going in the industry?
Yeah, when I was going to I don't want to date myself, but when I was going to college, e-commerce didn't exist. The internet really didn't exist the way we use it today. And I kind of stumbled into this career following my wife and her career, and ended up in a small little town called Columbia, Missouri, and started working for a textbook distributor in the early 2000s. And I built I was building corporate websites, doing corporate communication, everything I was like more classically trained to do from a marketing perspective. And one day our CEO called me into his office and asked if I could build another website. And they had owned the website textbooks.com. And he asked me to put together a business plan and a marketing plan and a strategy for launching textbooks.com and what it would look like. And I went out, I built a team, built the strategy, built the plan, and launched the website in 2005, 2006. And that kind of launched me into a career in e-commerce. Didn't really know what e-commerce was, didn't really know what impact e-commerce would be having, but I knew that I was kind of on the cutting edge of, where things were going, because there weren't a lot of brands that were building big websites back then, right? And most of the websites that were being built were branding websites, right? They were just sites for your company to have as like a place to talk about themselves. They weren't really for driving e-commerce or for anything like that. So, that's kind of how I kind of got started in this crazy world.
I love it. Now, did you always have an interest in marketing, or did that come about as you took on this initial role?
No, I always had interest in marketing. Marketing was always a deep fascination of mine, going back to high school. And all I knew is that when I graduated college, all I knew is that I didn't want to go into sales. I wasn't interested in being a salesman. And probably what I've come to, looking back on my career, looking back on my life, what I've learned is that what I've really been good at is marketing and business development. And while they do use a lot of skills as the same as a salesperson, they are very different. And so I always had fascination in how did brands get developed, and how did you create the emotional response beyond a brand? But again, the brands that I was raised learning were about how the Post-it came to be, and how, what a good campaign looked like versus a bad campaign. And it was much more around corporate advertising, corporate promotions. It was, very classic product, price, place, promotion type of marketing. But I always had this fascination with consumer behavior and what drove people to take the actions that they took, and how did you ultimately connect them with your brand to create an emotional connection that would drive an action that you are looking to have taken.
I've always been curious about that whenever I see the 4 Ps, and I kind of wonder, what about the EQ and the emotional component of it? And it's great to hear you talk about that, because that is such a big part of what you put together on marketing and content and all of the messaging and so on.
Yeah, my minor was in consumer behavior. So and sociology. And so if you think about like the concepts of sociology and understanding why we do the things that we do, and consumer behavior is why we do them in a business perspective, I applied both of those into the concepts of marketing and e-commerce. And if you think about it, in the early days, it was like, how do you get somebody? It was simple. Like, how do you get somebody to click on something and just make them realize that that's actually a click and a button? And one of, I think, the fascinating things of e-commerce is that as e-commerce and the internet has evolved over time, it's taken natural actions that consumers are using, and it's building upon them to get them to do things like add more to their cart, come back and be a repeat purchaser, create brand loyalty, right? So we're applying those same concepts into a new medium, but in reality, like it's all the same kind of science, art background.
Tell us a little about campus books, textbooks. You were kind of, as you said, at the time, people were just almost building websites just to have a site up, have a landing page in a way, and then you turn it into something much more than that.
Yeah. So, just to kind of take you through the career quickly, I kind of follow, if you're a historian of the internet, or you're a historian of Amazon, I kind of followed like that trajectory. So if you think about it, in the mid 2000s, a lot of websites were very generic, right? So textbooks.com was how we searched online. We would go to Google and we would say, what do I want to buy? I want to buy a textbook. I don't know where to go. And therefore, if you owned the URL textbooks.com, you would rank really, really well for organic traffic. And so textbooks.com was owned by a subsidiary of Barnes and Noble, privately held. And so we had all of the distribution that we needed for shipping textbooks and buying textbooks, but we didn't have an e-commerce version of that. And so textbooks.com really became kind of the e-commerce D2C version of what they were doing on like a campus wholesale type of activity. So I started off, in the textbook career, literally on college campuses, buying books from people at the end of the college semester, giving you some beer money to go out and give me, and we would take back the books, and then we would distribute them to other college campuses to resell. And we realized that a lot of people were buying our books for sale on the internet. And we're like, well, wait a minute, what are they doing with them? And as we dug deeper, we were like, well, we could just do that ourselves. And so when we launched textbooks.com, it quickly became obvious to us that a significant portion of our sales were direct and a significant portion were happening through eBay and Amazon, because that's basically where the world of textbooks were being sold back then. I made a few decisions about, my wife was finishing her residency. We were moving out of town. I needed to change jobs, and I went to go work for an affiliate of textbooks.com. And so if you think about the late 2000s, rolling into the 2010s, affiliate websites were really big. They were big drivers of traffic. Now, today we think of those as like influencer sites like BuzzFeed and sites like that are driving traffic from content-driven sites to e-commerce sites or to direct-to-consumer sites. But back then, this was a whole array of websites around textbook price comparison. So at campusbooks.com, what we did was we took prices from all the different textbook places around the internet, and we told you where you could buy your book for the least price, or you could sell your book for the best price. And then we would get an affiliate commission from half.com, Amazon, eBay, a bunch of other places. And so I went there for a number of years. And when I was there, I actually stumbled upon this whole world of third-party sellers on Amazon and buying products at USPS auction. So think storage wars, but not opening up a storage unit. You would go to the US Postal Service and you would find all these products that got lost during shipping, and you could bid on buying all these products. And so we were buying products, books and textbooks, because that's what we knew, that fell off the truck, so to speak, got lost in the mail, so to speak, right? And we would resell them on Amazon and eBay and all these other places. But then we started dabbling into other products because you'd be at the auction and you'd just buy an extra lot to kind of see what would happen. And so around 2013, 2014, we had built up a 10,000 square foot warehouse. The owner of that was developing software to run the warehouse. And he had this idea that he needed some new software for his business. And so he went to a show for sellers on the Amazon marketplace. And what he realized by being there was that he had developed software that nobody else had. And while he thought he was going there to get more software, what he actually found was that everybody needed the software he had made. And so we took one of our internal products that we were using and we turned it into an external product. And for people that have been in the e-commerce space for a long time, our first product was called Feedback Genius. And then that product spun off to create the company Seller Labs. And I left Campus Books and went to run Seller Labs for a number of years. And Seller Labs, interestingly enough, kind of followed the Amazon curve. So as people were moving from being resellers on Amazon to private label sellers to being brand sellers, we were developing software tied into the Amazon APIs that would help you scale your business, improve your efficiency, improve your profitability of the business of being a seller.
Jeff, there's so many things I love about that story. I don't know whether it's that all the dots connected or that you had such a close experience with the Amazon ecosystem, and then that grew into obviously what you're doing today. So,
it's funny because one, I have, high school age kids now, and I tell my kids, you don't know what your career is going to be, right? You need to learn to study, and you need to learn to just be a good employee, and you need to learn to be an astute student because things will change over time. And I think the second is that I followed a bit of a passion, and I did have a connective tissue. And it really wasn't until I started working at Amazon that I really realized that my journey didn't start at Seller Labs. My journey started back in 2005 when I started textbooks.com. And that I had been in this space, and anybody you meet in this space that's been involved in the space for a long time on the third party side either has some kind of history to textbooks or electronics, because those were really the bread and butter of products from the early 2000s that really drove the third party marketplace. And it also kind of showed like the history of how things have changed and evolved, and how, now listen, I could still sell textbooks on Amazon today and probably run a successful business. It's not the size that it was because of all the changes that have happened with the publishers and digital codes and all these other things that have happened in that space. But I didn't choose to do that. I chose to keep seeing bigger opportunities and keep kind of growing my career into bigger opportunities using the experience that I kind of had along the way.
Tell us a little about your learnings from Seller Labs. I mean, gosh, running the business, having this spin out from the original textbook business into something new. What were some of your learnings or your insights from those days?
I think the biggest one that I still apply almost every day that I'm at Amazon goes back to a very simple book that I read called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's the idea that the ability to manage yourself, your business, and opportunities through change is really critical to success. Another book that was influential to me was called The Startup Nation. And in The Startup Nation, they talk about this concept of pivot or perseverance, right? And that there's these inflection points in the growth of your business where you must choose to either pivot or persevere. And, I think those are concepts that I learned very early on in business, and I've learned to refine them as skills. I definitely haven't mastered them by any means, but I would say that today, when change occurs, I'm very good at handling change. It doesn't freak me out. I see the opportunity in it. As long as that change is logical, that change, if I can see how that change makes sense in the market, in the evolution of where things are trying to go, I can roll with it. And then also that pivot or persevere. There were plenty of times with our business that we had to choose, do we continue to go down this path and persevere, or do we pivot and we move on to something else? Because at Stellar Labs, we had many different units of our business that we started, right? We started off as a third-party review tool. We built another application that was built off of generating reviews that we had to shut down because of some of the policies at Amazon changed. We had other pivots to move into the services side of the industry because we had a lot of people contacting us and saying, hey, I love your software. Can you do it for me? And so we had to decide, do we want to be a services company? Do we want to be a software company? How do we want to grow and build our business? And so all of those just really, I think, became foundational concepts that are important. And I think Amazon does a really good job of codifying things that is allowed it to grow to the scale that it has. At Amazon, they're called mental models, they're called frameworks, they're called mechanisms. And I probably didn't see that as I was growing all of these businesses, but I really started to put mental models around these things to have frameworks for how to deal with change, how to see a new opportunity and identify what its potential was, and then when to double down and when to move on.
So great. I'm going to have a whole other podcast episode with you if you'll come back to talk about how to know. So it's a great learning and great insight to be able to know here's how to deal with change and then how to take advantage of it when you see that. It's really cool.
Yeah, not that I don't want to have that other session, because I think there's a lot you can dive into in that. But I think to not leave a huge cliffhanger, I think if I was going to boil it down to the most simplest terms, I would say that it's not having fear of failure, right? Like that's really what it comes down to. And it's understanding the metrics along the way that tell you whether you're being successful. And I think that applies even to brands on Amazon today. If you can identify those things before you start, you can then evaluate your success so much better than if you go in blind and then you're trying to figure out, well, what KPIs and metrics actually back up to support whether this was a good decision or not.
Don't be afraid of failure. We could all use a little bit more of that. So great advice. Tell us what you're up to now. You, when we were getting ready for this podcast, you told me you had really found what you love doing, and would love for you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, so I consider myself extremely lucky. I was somebody had approached me about coming to work for them, and I made a joke with them, and I said something to the effect of, "Well, the only company I'd ever go work for is Amazon if they paid me to, be an evangelist." And about 3 or 4 months after that, I found out that Amazon had an open role for an evangelist in the ads side of the business, and I joined Amazon. And so I've been with Amazon for 2.5 years now. My title is Tech Evangelist for Amazon Ads, and I work with our thousands of partners. So basically my competitors before are now my customers that I call on. And I help them understand the Amazon Ads API. I help them understand technologically where they're at today and where they're trying to go. And my job is really to apply a 30,000 foot view to a business to understand what are their key metrics, who is their key customer, right? Who is their ICP, their ideal customer profile, and what features and functionality within Amazon Ads will help them best serve those customers. And my goal is ultimately to make advertising more efficient and more effective. And that could be to the brand who's trying to make their dollars go further, or it could be to an agency that's looking to improve their operational efficiency, and anything kind of in between, right? It also could be like a brand who's trying to understand, how do I get into streaming television when I have no creative, it's a cold start problem from a creative. And then working with agencies and tech providers to scale those so that the most number of brands can take advantage of Amazon Ads as potentially possible.
Will you tell us a little about Amazon does have a huge ecosystem. How do you spend your day? You've got all these different kind of constituents that you would like to be talking to, I imagine. How do you kind of think about where you're going to spend time and who you talk to and how you get the word out?
Yeah. So my mental model around that is about acceleration and growth, right? And so when I'm trying to kind of prioritize where I spend my time during the day, I want to look at who can apply the learnings in like the fastest way, balancing short term and long term, right? And so some of the things that you do from like an evangelist perspective are really about long term mental model shifts, making people aware of new technology, making people aware of new metrics that they need to be considering. Thinking of Amazon as more than just an e-commerce website, right? Those are things that I do from like the 30,000 foot view as an evangelist. But then it's also working specifically with our partners in, I'll give you an example. We had a partner that I was working with, and they really wanted to. Amazon has developed a lot of technology for brands that don't sell on Amazon. So from an advertising perspective, the ad units used to only work if you sold on Amazon. Today, that's totally changed. So I was working with one of our partners to identify whether it was an opportunity for them to build into this new technology. And I had met with another, a large agency who was doing a considerable amount of business in this arena. And I realized that for their performance marketing, they were using the same tech provider. And I said, well, if that tech provider could also service you for brands who don't sell on Amazon, would you be interested? And they were like, yes. And so what I was able to do is take the CEO from one company and the CEO from another company and connect the two, create a connective tissue, because we all know, as being customer obsessed, we want a customer to build for, right? It makes things a lot easier for us. And so I was able to kind of create that connectivity, which allows for the tech provider to accelerate their development because they have a customer now that they're working for, or working with. It's probably a better description. And so my day could be in any array of things, whether it's developing content for an upcoming conference or event, doing a podcast like this, or having very one-on-one conversations with tech providers or brands, which keeps a good pulse on the industry, right? And so that's a big part of what I have to do as well, is keeping that pulse on the industry of what's being done, how's it being done. So obviously, on the time of this recording, Prime Day was last week. And so I've been doing a lot of like understanding, how did Prime Day go? What went well? What didn't go well? How is that going to shift strategies as we look to the future and things like that?
Amazing. Well, speaking of Prime Day, it may still be a little early to understand what all took place on Prime Day. But first off, congrats on another amazing event. Incredible. And now I'm sure the question on people's minds is, how do I carry that momentum forward? I've got back to school, I've got the fall, I've got holiday, which will be here before we know it. What are kind of some of your thoughts, suggestions for brands and for partners in the ecosystem thinking about that momentum?
Yeah, I mean, all the data that has been publicly shared either by Amazon or by other companies, I know Adobe had a great article out about the dollar sales at Amazon or at Prime Day. That's all based on their own calculations, not anything that they get from Amazon, but they all indicated that Prime Day saw significant growth over its previous years. And I think that's pretty cool. It's been 10 years. It's had consecutive growth for 10 years. And, one of the things that I thought was really interesting about Prime Day this year was that there were deals that were for brands that didn't sell on Amazon, right? Amazon was running like travel deals through like Avis and some other providers. There were deals where you could shop on Amazon and buy on other websites, right? Promoting a lot of the buy with Prime. And then, of course, there was obviously the introduction of Rufus, which is our AI shopping engine. And, I think it's still early in like what Rufus is going to look like and how it's going to work. But with a lot of things with AI, you need to bring the first version out to market. And then you can start to build and iterate based off of adding more learnings and the AI becoming smarter in what it does. So I thought that was really exciting. I think what that means as we start to look to the back half of the year is, first off, deals are still important. But as I like to tell people, deals are not the end all be all. And so there were plenty of brands that did well without running deals and promotions. Deals should always be considered kind of a strategy, right? You don't want to just run one for the sake of running one. You want to understand, like, what are your products in your catalog and how are you going to use deals to bring people in, bring them to your Amazon store, get them to look at other products, increase the lifetime value of that customer. So be thinking of deals as more of a way to attract and retain customers, not necessarily just this one-time, one purchase type of mentality. The other thing is that Amazon and its growth of the Amazon DSP, right, which is the way to programmatically buy ads, is allowing for a lot more signals and a lot more data signals that are coming back to tell you how your ads are performing. And so our brands that were best in class were building audiences and engaging with them through advertising to drive the action that they wanted or that they desired on Prime Day. And now those audiences are built, and there's ways to use those audiences and to learn from those audiences to either expand them or to build new ones for things like back to school, or if Amazon runs Prime Early Days in October again, or Cyber 11, Turkey 11, right, which is now like the whole week leading up to Thanksgiving and through Cyber Monday. And what this means for brands is that brands need to stop and they need to think and they need to build out promotional strategies. They need to build out inventory strategies. They need to build out pricing strategies to understand how to take advantage of these different promotional periods to spark the growth of the audiences that they're trying to attract themselves to. And then you layer on top of that the ability to bring in streaming television or Prime Video for brands that want to attract even more audiences. And you can start to kind of tap into this larger Amazon canvas that exists that gives you a wider audience to market your products to.
So much to unpack there. Let me ask you about two specific items. One is for those of our listeners who might be more digital shelf focused, product detail pages content. We take just a minute and talk about this DSP. What is that? And how do you work with that as a brand?
Yeah. So, the DSP, there are two ways you can access, I'll say, middle and upper funnel customers or signals on Amazon to reach new customers. One is self-service. You just come to Amazon and you tell Amazon, this is the outcome that I desire. And Amazon kind of does all the work for you on the back end to drive the outcomes that you want. The second way is to use the Amazon DSP, which allows you to kind of pull and twist. If you think about it as like a giant soundboard, right? And you're trying to kind of get the perfect sound, you can control the treble and the bass, right? And so the DSP gives you the ability to say, this is the demographic, this is the psychographic, these are the actions that I want them to take. They've visited my page before, they've shown some interest but haven't repurchased, right? A whole bunch of these different signals that you can have that allow you to create audiences that then serve your ads to those audiences. And so those ads can be served through digital ads. They can be served in store with in-store ads. They can be served through Wondery, right? If you want to do audio ads. And so you've got this whole array of how different ads can be served and how you reach additional audiences. And so if I break it down to like its most simple concept, it's that lower funnel ad activity on Amazon is called sponsored products, where you're very conversion focused. When you start to get focused in on people who are at the awareness or consideration phase, you're looking more than just ROI or conversions, and you're looking for maybe like new to brand customers, or you're looking for signals that are going to tie back to that conversion result if the conversion is what you're going for, right? Because there are also brands that are using this who aren't selling on Amazon. And I think that's one of the things that's been a big evolution at Amazon, is that Amazon has a whole plethora of advertising tools for both brands that sell on Amazon, the ones you traditionally think of, but they also have them for the brands that don't sell on Amazon. So if you want to send the traffic to your D2C store, or you want to send the traffic primarily to your D2C store. I mean, you wouldn't send it to another retail market, you would send it to Amazon. But maybe you want leads, right? Maybe you're a service company and you want to tap into Amazon signals to get new leads for your business. And so us who grew up in this world, in this digital shelf world, we've always kind of looked at and saw Amazon as a conversion focused shopping site. But it's become so much more because if you think about the Amazon consumer and how they're engaging with Amazon through Alexa, through Prime Video, through live sports, and all these other properties that Amazon has built, it creates really rich signals that allow you to find new shoppers who could be interested in your product. And so the DSP allows you to tie into those signals to serve your ads to those audiences.
Thanks for that. And my other question is really around and top of funnel when it comes to the creative and the content and the brand. What are you seeing work well? How should brands be thinking about that? A lot of the focus is on conversion and promos and messaging and all that, but content plays a big role in that. How do you think about that part of the equation?
Yeah, so the big shift that's occurred, and I think the digital shelf part of the industry has seen this, right? Because it's like the digital shelf had to be explained into these large corporations to say, hey, it's more than just putting yourself on Amazon. You actually have to position yourself at Amazon so that you show up in search and so that the consumer understands your product and they know how to make decisions across your catalog of products, right? And so that same evolution is occurring on the advertising side. And so when you look at traditional performance marketing, performance marketing is usually measured off of like an ACoS, a taco, or an ROI. And then there's another side of the brand that works on brand marketing. And brand marketing is typically based on like reach and audience and just looking for impressions. And those are starting to become intertwined at companies that are looking at Amazon and realizing they can solve for both. And so as that kind of starts to occur, it's causing a lot of different kind of disruptions in the space, because not just Amazon, but all retail media networks are kind of becoming more than just a place for the conversions to occur. And the way that I describe it is that if we take ourselves back to a physical store, as a shopper, if I want to buy a board game, and I walk into a physical store near my house, I know where the toy section is and I know where the board games are. And I can actually stand here now and I can visualize that whole game, that whole wall of board games. And I walk into the store, I go back there and I grab the board game that I want, I put it in my cart and I go out. But if I don't know that I want a board game, I just know that I want something for a 12 to 13-year-old, then I'm going in and I'm probably going around the toy section to start, but I could also wander off into like sports and outdoors, or I could go into like home and decor. There's different places I could potentially go. The first one was me being conversion focused, right? I'm going to the wall, I'm getting what I want. The second one is me being in the awareness phase, which is like, I don't know what I want, but I know what kind of category I'm potentially in market for. And then the third one is like, I'm just kind of a general shopper. I'm actually at the store and I'm trying to buy party supplies for a 13-year-old's birthday. But I walk past an end cap and that end cap has a board game. And I think to myself, I bet the kids would enjoy themselves if they played this game at the birthday party. So I didn't go there with the intention of buying that, but because of the end cap at the store, I buy it. So all of those are consumers that we're very well aware of in a physical store environment. But when we go online, we all of a sudden thought that like there's this like straight funnel that everybody fits into one of these three buckets, and the funnel just gets narrow as you go down. I don't like talking about it as a funnel anymore, right? And we've all said that the path to purchase is no longer linear. Therefore, the funnel can't be a funnel. Now, I don't want to disrupt all these marketers that classically trained me and that we talked about at the beginning, because I think conceptually it's still important to think about audiences and audience size and the ability to reach additional audiences. And that's how we should be thinking about the funnel, if you will, when we talk about e-commerce. So I thought maybe an analogy might be helpful for the people that are listening.
That was great. That was one of the best explanations I've heard in this space. There are a lot of pieces in the space. Well, I can't think of a better place to kind of take what we started out with to where we've landed now. And I do have some kind of rapid fire wrap up questions for you if you're up for that.
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
All right. So the first one, predictions for the next 12 months or things that you're keeping an eye on. What looks interesting for you looking ahead?
Yeah, I mean, listen, AI is going to continue to play a very strong and evolving role in our industry. And I thought that I heard from, I heard at Cannes this past about 2 months ago from one of our VPs, which was great, which is like AI products will never be worse than you see them today, right? That they're constantly changing and evolving. So if you had asked me to predict 30 years ago where I would be or like how a cell phone would be used, I don't know that I would tell you that a cell phone would be used in the way we use mobile devices. So it's hard to predict where AI is going to go, but I think AI is going to continue to play a very important evolving role in e-commerce, in creative, in content development, and in a lot of other areas. And it's probably going to start solving for things that we haven't even thought of.
I love it. Great way to think about what's coming, that it can only get better. So love that. Now, here's another one for you. I know this is tough to pick only two, but which two people have influenced you the most in your professional career, professional life?
Yeah, so I'm going to say that the first one was my first boss. He's passed away, so I'll say, God bless him, and he did a lot for me. He was a great mentor. Taught me a lot of like really simple lessons that I probably underappreciated as I was getting yelled at. I didn't really get yelled at, but he had a very stern voice. And then I think the second one would probably be my wife, who just constantly kind of pushes me, never lets me settle for being less than my best, and is always kind of driving me to think more, maybe even like think more of myself, right? And I consider myself a fairly confident person, but her support makes it a lot easier to do a lot of the things that I've done.
Such great words, and I know we could all use a bit more of that. So well said. When you do get some time outside of work and family, if you get some time, what are some of your favorite hobbies?
Yeah, I'm old school. I like watching a baseball game. I enjoy sitting on, either going to the stadium or sitting on the couch and watching a game. Although if I do it on the couch, I might fall asleep for some of the middle innings. And then my second one is probably watching college football. So those are the two. And then I think besides that, I just really enjoy like the quiet, simple moments, right? So it's taking some time out of this busy world, whether it's to go for a hike or go for a walk or sit by the pool, and just kind of like take a moment, sit back, relax, and go, man, like life is good.
Well, Jeff, it's been great talking with you. For folks that would like to reach you online, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please don't just connect with me, but say hello. Or if you see me at a conference or event, come up and say hi. Let me know that you heard me on the podcast. I really do enjoy hearing that. I'll give you a kind of a weird story where we were at my daughter's high school graduation, and my wife saw a guy who's a podcaster, and she like went up and totally fanboyed, and she thought that she was she's like, oh my God, I was so weird. I can't believe I did that. And I said to her, I said, no, as somebody who does content a lot, like we really do, and I'm sure Dave, you agree, like we really do appreciate when people come up and tell us and share with us maybe something that they learned, something that inspired them, something that kind of drove them to do something else based on, what we've shared. So please reach out on LinkedIn, or if you see me say something, say hello.
Jeff, that's so great. And I can't thank the guests like yourself who have taking your time to speak with me, and can't thank you enough for doing that and sharing your insights. And it was so great chatting with you today. I learned a ton, and I hope you'll come back.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by It's Rapid. It's Rapid is the platform Pepsi, Sierra Nevada, Revlon, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use It's Rapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.